So destiny sounds like, oh, it's an amazing thing. People want to know, what's my destiny? But in the Apocryphon of John, the key Gnostic text, it's saying actually destiny is not that. It's something that is binding you. It is taking a hold of you. And when the demiurge Yaldabaoth saw that humans had the capacity to be superior to it, it wanted to bind them into forgetfulness so that they were then bound into rules and structures that actually didn't serve their awakening. It served them staying asleep. And so this is what many people experience, right? So that's why sometimes people feel like, why does it feel like a grind? The Gnostics would say it feels like a grind because you're in somewhat of a cage. You are in a system that isn't meant to let you become free. That actually you should strive very hard to awaken. And how does one awaken? And this is what the Buddhists say. This is what the Hindus say, right? The Buddhists, number one of the primary foundations, they say, don't waste your time on irrelevant things. If you have consciousness and awareness, spend your time on reaching liberation so that you are truly free. But instead, you spend your time trying to have a somewhat better life in the duality. Like, is that your best use of time? And how does one break free from this duality? Right? It comes from the letting go of control. Again, we keep trying to control. And even in meditation, some people approach meditation like, I'm going to control my thoughts. I'm just not going to think, right? But meditation isn't about controlling. It's about letting go. You're practicing letting go. And in fact, that's what purification does. It helps you with letting go. Now, a lot of people misunderstand purification. Oh, purification is like a moral thing. I've got to purify my impure thoughts, my impulses to darkness. That's not what purification is. Purification is allowing yourself to let go of this control. This desire to control is the number one thing that binds you. And it binds you to your quote unquote destiny. But actually, your only true destiny is to know your real self, which is divine. You can say, even this is the karma that I am meant to live out in this lifetime. That's still a binding. We've talked about that in here. Karma is still an attachment and a binding. Of course, the habituation of tendencies is what keeps us locked in that binding. Theoretically, it is metaphysically possible to be liberated and awakened in a moment, in a nanosecond. But realistically, given our nervous system, loop repetitions, trauma in our somatic tissue, right? So we have somatic remembrance and awareness. The tissue remembers even if the mind does not, our conscious mind doesn't. So there's all these things that we have to work through. I remember thinking years ago, if people can't control what they put in their mouth, how they eat, how are they going to control the rest of their mind? And so actually, that's when I started realizing it wasn't about control. It was really about this letting go. That's why so many of you know I'm push the mantra so much, because it's the number one thing that I have found that helps people let go. Let go of the control, purify that need to control. And once you start to let go, then actually the divine spirit awakens. Again, you can hear this over and over and over. The steps are so simple. But the binding, the attachment to control is so deep. So when we do the mantra, it starts to detox your nervous system. It starts to detox your chakras. It starts to unwind the somatic tendencies. it starts to release and uncouple the habituation of the mind thought patterns. And then you can start to access that divine light. And so again, even to the extent of, right, the release of identification of the I. So when you feel an angry thought, a resentful thought, a jealous thought arise in you, then even then you're remembering, oh, this thought isn't me. It's just arising through me. And I actually don't have to bind to it. We talked a lot about identification, release of identification in the last couple of weeks because it's so slippery. It's so insidious. You think that you're not identifying with things until you're confronted with something, and then you realize that these major to subtle identifications are still there. Why is it so hard to let the energy flow through me and have the experience? And that's why I've always said you have to do it slow by slow so you don't go crazy, you don't lose your mind. Little by little, you let go. Little by little, you let go. And through the letting go, you realize it's actually not so scary. And this is the crazy thing is that when you let go, is you're not just letting go of control, you're letting go of your forgetting. That's how you step into remembrance of divine self, is through letting go. But if somebody says to you, well, you want to connect to your divine self? First step is stop trying to control everything. Well, I don't know. How long can people last? Like an hour? Again. And then you're reminded, oh, but the number one way to access the divine is letting go. But at some point, right, you can only do it so much until you're like, gotta grab those reins again. And that's very, very hard. And this is the only way, though, that you dissolve your forgetfulness is by really, really, really starting to let go. And it's like the paradox. Once you stop fighting, your inner scenery actually becomes much calmer. The chaos inside settles into its own harmony. And whatever disruption to the harmony you see, if you sit long enough, it passes. Even the most negative feelings of shame, of regret, of fury, those really deep ones, they feel so deep, you don't even know if you can find the root to it. It's so deep. But it passes. But sometimes we're not patient enough to let it pass. So anyway, I thought that today's reading is interesting because really think about, do you feel bound to a destiny? Even if it's positive, right? There's a binding that's there. I've heard so many people say this in when they feel like they're making a contribution to the world. I'm meant to save the world. This is me when I was 17. I have to save the world. Right? And those of you, right, if you feel that, like at least you have to add your contribution to the world. But that can feel like some kind of pressure. Feels like a pressure. And it's a low-level pressure that's constantly there. And then what happens is people get burnt out. And then you're like, wait, is what I'm doing? Does it matter? Yeah, it matters. But it matters more of who you are going through it. And if you can release that low-level pressure, actually it frees up a lot of energy. If anybody's ever had like a stone in their shoe, but you're carrying packages and you can't get the stone out of your shoe to get to your front door. It's low grade, annoying you constantly. Or if you know people in chronic pain, They're perpetually crabby. They don't mean to be. They just don't know how not to be, because something's continually wearing on them. And the thing is, you might not have low-grade back pain or knee pain that's continually wearing on you, but if you have this self-induced pressure of something that you feel like you have to do or have to be before you shuffle off this mortal coil, it's going to be like that. You're going to have a subtle irritation because you're not going to feel fully liberated. And even if you're not fully liberated with a capital L, you can be mini liberated by just letting you get go of that pressure you put on yourself of who you're supposed to be and how far advanced you think you're supposed to be. And so destiny in that perspective can be a bond. Can be a bond. Anyway, so just reflect on that. Is there anything else I want to say? I think that's it. So, in a sense, we've stepped into this created system of forgetting. You know, that's the only agency that we really have. It's how much we let go and step into awakening.